Welcome to Into the Wormhole. I'm Lauren, Miss Lowen if you're nasty, and with me is Captain
Larissa Maestro, or Larissa Maestro if you're nasty.
We're not nasty if you're just polite and formal.
Or if you're just nice, you just call me Larissa, no matter who you are. It's like that those memes, the LinkedIn, Tinder, Facebook, Instagram memes, and it's Tuvok and it's all the same picture.
Nice.
That's same.
That's Larissa.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about the first part of Lower Decks. This is the new animated show on CBS, not to be confused with the Lower Decks that we talked about with TNG season. Was that season 6 or season 7?
Six.
I think it's season 6. Yeah. Not to be confused with that. We do have a previous episode where we reviewed that TNG episode and then also talked a little bit about the animated Lower Decks trailer that had just come out.
Yeah.
So this will be fun. I think I've seen episode 1 through 4. Larissa, have you seen the whole thing?
No, I haven't seen the whole thing.
What are you up to?
I haven't seen the last 2 of the season.
Okay, but there's only 10 episodes. So you're up to 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So this review though, we're just going to talk about episode 1 through 3. Oh wait, no.
Yeah, and we can talk about episode 4 a little bit. Like whatever you've seen, I'm happy to talk about.
Okay. We'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, we're just going to see where it goes. We're just going to talk about Lower Decks. It's exciting to talk about a new Star Trek show. This is the second new Star Trek series we have discussed on the pod. And in the future, I mean, Discovery season 3 just came out, which is pretty exciting. So we'll get to that at some point. You know, all this stuff is up to stream, so we'll get there.
Exactly.
We'll get there. And Lauren's going to be going on maternity leave, so it'll be a minute before we get to those shows, but that's fine. It's not like they're going anywhere. They're out and they're now in the ether and you can find them and whatever. I'm excited to talk about this because this is so different as far as Star Trek goes. This is this show is created by Mike McMahan, who is involved in Rick and Morty.
Yes.
Is he a co-creator of Rick and Morty, or was he a writer on Rick and Morty?
I want to say he's heavily involved, but not one of the creators. Yeah,
he's a writer and a producer for Rick and Morty. And he's also the creator of that animated show Solar Opposites.
Oh,
on Hulu.
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Which totally makes sense to me. I've seen a couple of episodes of that show. So this guy is a huge nerd.
And he also has a history.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking at his credits, he's been involved in like Axe Cop, even some South Park things.
That totally checks out.
So, yeah. Okay, yeah. So definitely that adult animation vibe. He's part of that world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if you're making an animated Star Trek show, I feel like already the animated series is like deeper for some people. Like I know a lot of like really committed Star Trek fans who have not seen the animated series.
I've seen maybe moments of the animated series. You can count me. I forget about it. TAS, that's what people call it.
So I feel like if you are, if your goal is to make a new Star Trek animated series, like you're probably really deep in the fandom. I mean, I'm just using that as like a barometer for like how nerdy, or I was using that as a barometer for how nerdy I thought the show was going to be. And I feel like I was right. It is. Okay. It is very like one of the things I noticed immediately was just, I mean, even just in the cold open of the first episode and then seeing the intro credits sequence for the first time, I was like, oh, okay, we're nerding out. This is just, I was like, how many references to shit is there? Like even in the theme music itself, like there's part of it that sounds like it's pulled from the theme for First Contact, the movie. The fact that they did that they used the TNG font in the opening credits, the fact that it's an orchestral theme, the way that that calls back to the Star Trek of the 90s. I mean, it's all very reverential while at the same time it's reverential, it's nerdy, but occasionally it's like making fun of itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely satire.
Yeah,
which I think it's safe to say, going back to the original like TAS, the animated series that had Spock, Kurt, and Bones. My one memory is seeing Spock, I think, riding a brontosaurus. That's my lasting impression. I think it's safe to say, though, that that animated show was never meant to be a satire, correct?
No, it was not.
Yeah,
that was supposed to be a
continuation.
Yes.
Okay, just for the record.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a continuation of the original series in which they were able to do more crazy stuff because they didn't have to pay for sets and they didn't have to pay for makeup and things like that. Like, it was a way for them to, after they got canceled, a way for them to continue making the show. So it really kind of does feel like the original series in a lot of ways, because they do have the entire original series cast back as voices too. So it might have been Nimoy that was like, I'm not doing it unless you get everyone. And then they got everyone. And he was like, oh, okay.
Damn it.
Damn it, I have to play Spock again? Okay, I guess I'm going to be Spock for the rest of my life.
And there was much rejoicing.
And there was much rejoicing. But yeah, so like those are my feelings about the intro. Those were my sort of first impressions of the show. There are so many tiny references and like fandom specific jokes. Just it's overwhelming how many there are. Like, I started trying to count them and then I was like, why would I do that? Like, it's there are so many. Just
and I think
everywhere.
Two things on that. One is that you noted in Picard, which we also reviewed, that sometimes those moments got a little heavy and distracting.
Yeah.
And then also, I think
they like put a lot of weight on those moments in Picard.
True.
Like because Picard's also slower. They would like stop and like look at that moment together for a while and be like, look, do you see this moment? Do you see this moment that calls back to other moments that you enjoy? Isn't it nice? And we're like, yeah. Are we going to do the new story? Are we going to know about the new story? We know about this already.
Gotcha. No, that's like, a good.
Yeah, but this is like, oh my God, how many times, how many little things? Whoa. What did you just say? Did you just say something about exocomps? Did you just say something about, like, it's just so many times. Somebody like, oh, is that a statue of Miles O'Brien? Yes.
Right. And that's a real thing that just happened. We'll probably get there. Because I'll say also an interesting thing that happened was you and I watched it, and I watched it with Keith and you watched it with Dan, and our significant others have watched Star Trek before, but I think they don't really qualify themselves as big fans.
Yeah, no.
You know? I think for us, and I'm sure for you, that also became an interesting experiment to see what happened when you put the show in front of somebody who is very much in that Star Trek fandom and can pick up on all those eggs, and then people who may not, viewers who may be either more casual Star Trek viewers or unaware of those references at all, and just see the different effects the show had on each viewer.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like, Dan did watch this with you, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He watched this with me and he enjoyed it. He was like, that was fun. Also, he was like, there is so much talking.
Oh, yes. Rapid fire talking. We'll get to that.
Yeah. But like, he enjoyed it without without all of the Easter eggs, like you said. Like, he enjoyed it without realizing that Ensign Tendi is an Orion. Like, he wouldn't get the Janeway maneuver reference, you know, like he wouldn't get any of that. And there are some pretty serious references that are like, you would not, if you don't get this entire joke, you know, like it's just going to be a moment. Like it would still be fun maybe to watch, but like there's a whole joke in there. That's a reference to an entire other series of Star Trek, because there's so much material to draw from to joke on.
And some of it, too, is like references or satires on things that are very much Star Trek, but also just sci-fi things in general. So I think that's one thing we'll discuss as well, is the fact that even if you don't get the particular reference, you still understand those kind of tropes or cliches or things because you've seen them in other things. You see them in Firefly or Star Wars, or you've seen them in Futurama or Rick and Morty or something like that. Just kind of things that we appreciate from different other medias that deal with similar things.
Yeah, and it's also sort of a testament to the far reaches of Star Trek in the genre, that like in the genre of sci-fi, like Star Trek is a massive beast of influence. So when a Star Trek reference is thrown out there, it's probably been done by other sci-fi at some point because of the massiveess of the franchise.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and those balls have been sort of bounced back and forth, so to speak, to other entities out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk about the cast real quick?
Yeah,
Before we get into talking about
specifics? It'll probably be a muddling of cast and characters, right?
Yes, absolutely. Just because, like, we had brought up in our Lower Decks episode where we reviewed the trailer, we talked a little bit about sort of the reckoning that had been happening in animation with racial equity and representation in among voice casts in animated shows and movies, and talked about what we hoped for this one, because we didn't quite know yet what was going to happen with this voice cast. So there are, from what I see in the main cast, there are 3 people of color, and that's very exciting. There are also 3 white people too. So it's like, you know, half and half. Of those people of color, 2 of them are black and one of them is Filipino.
Yes, and I see your notes. You're very excited about that.
Because we don't get that much representation, you guys. Like, if there's Asian representation, it's usually East Asia. It's usually China, Japan, Korea. That's for real. and Pacific Islanders, Southeast Asians, we don't really get that much screen time, like, ever.
You kind of get lumped into like Asian miscellaneous, let's be honest, which is wah wah.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. 100%. Even though Filipinos are like the largest immigrant community, or the largest Asian immigrant community in the United States.
Really?
Yeah. So it's because the Philippines was an American colony.
Yes.
So there was a lot of freedom of movement from the Philippines to the United States for a long time, until the Philippines got its independence, and then the U.S. got mad and tried to kick all the Filipinos that were in the United States out. That's a whole other story. That's some history story.
Wah.
Wah. But this guy, Eugene Cordero, I was like, I know this guy. Where do I know him from? And then I looked it up, and he's Pillboy on The Good Place, which is one of the other shows that I've seen that has a Filipino main character. It's, as far as shows that have been on TV in the past few years, main character wise, there are only a couple shows that have featured Filipino actors in their main character casts, and one of them is Superstore. There's an actor named Nico Santos, and he plays a Filipino character on the show. And the other one is The Good Place, and that's Manny Jacinto, and he plays a Filipino American guy from Florida. If you've seen The Good Place, like, you know Jason.
I just realized who he is because I've seen The Good Place, but it's been a minute.
Yeah,
so yeah. Oh, who is Pillboy again? And yeah, he's Jason.
He's Jason's
goofy
friend.
Other half.
This guy was really funny. Like, that's the only other thing I know him from. And I was just like excited to see a Filipino get work, first of all. And then second of all, like, to see only the second Filipino that I know of on Star Trek. You know, like, that's so cool. And it's 2 new shows. You know, the 2 new shows that we have talked about on this podcast have Filipino actors in the main cast. And, like, finally, yay. And also Ensign Rutherford is, like, my favorite.
Should we assume now? I'm curious from, like, because we did talk about that. We did talk about how kind of the face behind the character, and we had 2 Black females. Their voice actors are 2 Black females. We also did kind of talk about the fact that there was, 2 alien characters who were voiced by white cast members, and how maybe those alien characters could be played by anyone.
Literally could be played by anyone.
So in this case, though, with Rutherford, the character who was confirmed in episode 1 to be a cyborg, I remember us talking about it. We didn't know if he just had a special advisor, but that's pretty much like the first scene with him is that they establish he has this new cyborg tech on him. And of course it's kind of malfunctioning, which is cute. So do you think it's safe to say that his character is supposed to be Filipino as well?
I mean, he's brown. Like, he's drawn brown, which I appreciate. But, like, since it's Star Trek, they're not making a point to talk about to talk about that. It's just like he is, he's brown, and he's an ensign on this ship. But, like, it doesn't have to be a thing. Just for the same way that they're not, like, specifically talking about Tawny Newsom's character is Black, like, because she's just Black.
Yeah. Or you even talked about how, like, with O'Brien and Keiko in the 90s, they never were like, look at this, we have an interracial couple. Look, it was just like, we
got one.
It's just there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. It was fun to find out. I enjoyed the little moment I had where I was like, oh, it's Eugene Cordero, he's Filipino. Oh, like, it was like, yay. And, like, who knows, maybe they'll do something with it in the future, but, like, maybe they won't, and that's fine. I'm just excited that there's a Filipinx actor on this cast. Like, that's cool. But also, there are still, I don't know. I'm just like, you could have a little harder, but it's still, I think they still did a pretty good job. And I do like the performances of everyone, so that's the important thing as well. I do think Noelle Wells works very well for this character. I mean, Jerry O'Connell is kind of an obvious choice for his character, but I think that's supposed to be sort of ironic. You know what I mean? So that's fine. Side note, he's married to Rebecca Romaine, who plays number 1 on Discovery, and then will play number 1 again on Strange New Worlds. And apparently they have arguments about who's the better number 1.
Nice.
I think it was like I watched a panel from the recent cons, but it was cute. I was like, oh, holy shit, they're married. Like, weird that there's a married couple that. Oh,
did you not know that?
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting too because there's a little bit of a Star Trek connection there, and I agree. I think just right off the bat, I will say the voice acting I think really works well with the characters. I think everyone is doing a great job. and they're talented.
Yeah.
And not to skip around too much, but to that point, for instance, Jerry O'Connell is married to Rebecca is it Romaine? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so weird seeing it spelled.
I know.
So Jack Quaid plays Bradward Boimler. That's Boimler. I think I haven't since Flocks. Like I haven't had that kind of like marbles in my mouth moment. This was something that we talked about. It had to get edited out for time when we talked about the trailer. Jack Quaid. If you feel like maybe there's a connection between him and Dennis Quaid, there is. He is Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan's son. Mm-hmm. He right now is on The Boys, which is available on Amazon Prime. It's another satirical show, very dark, about superheroes, and he plays a very everyday, kind of dopey, boyish person who is fully capable, but obviously in over their heads with the world they've been introduced to, kind of the seedy underworld. So, and we talked about how Sam Lavelle in the TNG episode needed more of a kind of boyish, almost Michael J. Fox. I remember you said that, Larissa.
Yeah.
Person, someone a little bit more dopey and dweeby. And I would say,
I was like, I don't believe that you have any problems.
I would say that Jack Quaid, if he was casted in that episode, would be perfect. Like, because I've seen episodes of The Boys. Not everyone, but when I do, he fits that template we have decided would work for a Lavelle character perfectly.
Yeah.
And then him just bringing his voice acting to this. He also does it here. What is also interesting is that on The Boys, though, that is Simon Pegg, and that is also who's the new Bones? Is that Carl Urban? Okay.
Ooh, be still my heart, Carl Urban.
But it's interesting because he also has some like Star Trek connections there too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But he's another one who it just makes you wonder if there's ever a conversation when they're on set, like, yeah, you want to be on the show?
Yeah. Right.
But he does an awesome job. So it's not just like they're throwing it at him. He maybe had a nice way to audition, but
he's like, you want to step out of the Kelvin timeline?
But he does. Jack Quaid does a great job of playing this character, who we kind of thought would be a Lavelle from the live action TNG episode. We kind of pinned him as that character, and he is. He is like the overambitious, kind of neurotic, young go-getter.
Yeah. But he's like Lavelle and Barclay in one.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because he's like so studied and calculated, and he loves the rules so much, and is just like so into the information that he has never applied it to actual life and has no idea how real things work. Like, he loves the safety of rules, and he loves the safety of like always knowing what's going to happen. Like, that's his favorite thing. But that is not what Starfleet is.
Yes, he's a perfect foil to Beckett Mariner, who is the main character. Even though it's an ensemble cast, she's definitely marketed as the main character. And you have Boimler, who is, like, he's read everything, he knows everything, he thinks he's fully prepared. And Mariner in the first episode points out that she may be kind of not as enthusiastic as him and a little rough around the edges, but she has the benefit of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's definitely way more into just like having a good time and doing whatever she wants. And I love that. I think Tawny Newsome does a great job here. The timbre of her voice works really well for this character as well. I didn't really, until I looked her up, I didn't really know much about her. And then I realized that she was on Space Force. I watched Space Force a couple times and I was like, this show is not very good. But she was good on it.
I do have a question about Beckett Mariner. And I'm curious because, okay, so just to catch the listener up, Beckett Mariner is on the ship, and she definitely is sort of...
the ship is the Cerritos, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I always want to call it the Dorito or
yes, me
like
too.
Just completely different.
The USS Doritos. The USS Cool Ranch Doritos.
We find out very early on in the first episode that the ship, it doesn't deal with first contact, it deals with second contact, which definitely, it's like, that's fun. They have to deal with all the boring follow-up administration stuff after the more highly acclaimed ships roll through and do first contact. So they're there to kind of do all the administrative paperwork stuff. And on the ship, we're introduced to Becca Mariner. She is definitely a little bit of a Star Trek misfit. And then we have the three other lower decks character who are all kind of the go-getters of the crew, people pleasers, and very ambitious. And my question is, the main character of lower decks, who is Mariner, we find out, I kind of called it from the beginning, we find out the captain, Carol Freeman, is her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so her mom is very much aware that her daughter is sort of an underperformer in Starfleet and is trying to keep tabs on her. And something that I thought about after the first episode is that character supposed to be, in a way, a spoof of the main character from Discovery? Because we have another leading black actress who is sort of seen as a Starfleet misfit who maybe cannot be 100% trusted and always has someone watching her over her shoulder. Or is that a coincidence? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. Like she's supposed to be a funny Michael Burnham?
I don't know. It might just be pure coincidence. But part of me was like, oh, so again, we have like two leading black female characters that are the, Starfleet underachievers.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, I'm not 100% familiar with Discovery. So this is something that I was interested to pitch at you and see what your reaction was.
I mean, I wouldn't call Michael Burnham an underachiever. I mean, I think
misfit probably is a better word.
Yeah. She's totally a misfit because she's like she's in the same, in sort of a similar way, or one similarity I guess you could point out between Mariner and Burnham is that they're both willing to break the rules to get the job done, and that's one of the reasons why they get in trouble. Like that is the reason why Burnham is court-martialed. Yes. I feel like Mariner alludes to being court-martialed.
Like, it sounds like she keeps just getting either demoted or slopped around to various assignments and ships, and they don't work out. It's the equivalent of like the high school student who keeps getting expelled, and then like she's been to 5 different schools in 4 years. And
yes, I mean, Mariner feels like she just has like a severe distaste for authority, and that is like literally, I like that that's been written into her character, because it's sort of what it does is satirizes the entire concept of a hierarchical military style system like the Federation, where everything is very rigid as far as rank and as far as like people having control over other crew members and being able to order them to do things or not to do things. And in a way, it's interesting to see a character like this existing within that framework, because it makes me think about how systems like that, they sort of work against the whole concept of this future utopia where everyone has freedom and can do whatever they want and be whoever they want. Just that construct itself. So I enjoy that there's that sort of deeper element of exploration in this show, because that's a very Star Trek thing to do, is to like look at itself and be like, is this what we should be doing, to really be introspective, but also to do it in this new, very modern way, which is through humor instead of through a lot of people talking to each other slowly and quietly in a conference room.
Well, it's funny. It touches upon everything from Damon saying in our crossover episode about competency porn and kind of making fun of that. Like, what happens when you get a character who would rather have margaritas, than just get going to the next job. Woo! But also, like, we have seen that. Like, Janeway is willing to break rules. Tom Paris.
Absolutely.
Is definitely somebody who's not exactly what you would call quote unquote Starfleet material when we first meet him. And you even have a bunch of Maquis who are just like, all right, you're Starfleet crew.
Yes, absolutely.
So I've seen some complaints that,
in the pale moonlight. Think about it. In the pale moonlight. And then Kira was a terrorist. And she breaks the rules all the time too. So you have, this has existed before, but not in this, not quite in this, not in this style.
And
is what I'm saying.
Like you said, there's like a heavy stylistic reference, and I think even the time period, if I remember, of like it's definitely meant to be very TNG.
Yes, yes,
and TNG was still very much about that, where for the everyone gets along, and the conflict comes from Starfleet dealing with outside entities or trying to sort of deal with those outside entities having friction with each other.
Yes,
so that's where a lot of the humor comes from.
In the crew. Yeah. The conflict is not on the Enterprise. The conflict is the Enterprise and whatever else is out there.
Yeah. And given the fact that the nature of the show, the animated, that we know the backgrounds of the creators and stuff, you need that foil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you need Mariner to be sort of the outsider in this case, and for Boimler to be her harsh foil. That's where you're going to get a lot of this conflict and humor.
Yeah, yeah. And I also wrote in my notes that these four main characters, like in a way, like feel like they could be representing different types of people within the fandom, different types of fans. That like there are some people who love watching Star Trek for the rules and the regulations. They love watching Star Trek for how organized it is and how clean and how there's a regulation for everything and it's beautiful. Like everyone knows what to do. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to think about what you're gonna wear that day. You just put on your uniform. It's beautiful. Like that kind of
a well-oiled machine.
Exactly.
Is this you?
No.
Okay.
But there are some people who are like, this is an adventure show. Like I watch this for the adventure element, for the exploration. And that's the exciting thing for me. And like, I feel like, I'm that way. I don't think I would be as reckless as a Mariner, but like I relate to that. I relate to that, like, sort of having not hatred for authority, but like questioning authority regularly, an affinity for that. And the idea that like the whole point of the show is to seek out new life. That's the thing. The prime directive isn't the thing. It's the, you know what I mean? It's like Jack Quaid's character is like the prime directive. You know what I mean? So
yes, he's memorized every protocol and rule and guidebook and tech manual out there.
Yes, yes. And then Rutherford is like nerding out on the tech, which there are lots of fans who like take elements of each of these characters, but like fans who are just like, oh man, transporters and the holodeck and the warp core. Like, yes, like we want these things. And that's like the exciting thing is to like see all the cool tech and the that kind of shit. So I was thinking that's probably not what they were doing, but I was like, this feels like it could be,
Yeah, because I feel like Boimler and Mariner are the hard foil, and then as far as to some degree Boimler, Tendi, and Rutherford for me. Again, I'm in the beginning half,
mm-hmm.
and they're only 20-minute episodes.
They're short, yeah.
They're short. I would say right now, obviously Mariner has a very strong personality because of her traits and what she's supposed to serve in the show. The other three, although I can start to see little kind of quirks and individual things about them, for the most part, though, they to me feel like they're kind of the same character. Like I said, they are the overachieving people pleaser, like so happy to be here, lower deck crew. So it's fun to hear your perspective of some of those like minute things that I hope get explored a little bit more in the season as I roll along and catch up to you where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like especially with Rutherford, we get that a little bit more in the second episode. So we get more of an idea of who this character is, because first of all, he's like rearranging his entire life to like hang out with Ensign Tendi. But also we get to know that like really his thing is that he just really loves engineering a lot. Like he just loves it. And it's not because he's not really interested. He doesn't really care about like ranking up or like impressing people, you know, like those aren't things they're really on his mind. He's just like, I really like want to like crawl around in a Jeffries tube. And it's so cute. It's so like sweet, because like that's really, as far as I'm concerned, like that's one of the things about the Federation and about Star Trek that's so attractive to me, is this idea that you can like really just like follow your own inspiration and really, or you follow your heart. You know what I'm saying? Like you can just like do what makes you happy. And every time he wants to switch directions, everyone's like totally supportive of him, completely supportive, and they're like, do whatever makes you happy. You got to do what you want to do, man. Like, great. We're so excited for you. It's like that. First of all, that is like hilarious, because it's definitely making fun of TNG. And and second of all, it makes me feel good in my heart. And you know how I like to feel good in my heart about things. That entire story setup was wonderful. And then like watching him like really realize that the thing that he loves the most is just to like crawl around in a dark Jeffries tube and fix things is so fucking funny.
And the fact that in the end his friends are okay with it too.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I agree with that. I had a hard time really picking out major differences, because if I had to describe Boimler, Tendi, and Rutherford in the first three episodes, we have storylines that basically paint them as people pleasers.
Yes.
And within slightly different tones.
Yes.
But that to me felt a little like, I guess, repetitive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say that like Boimler is very obviously in the first few episodes the most neurotic of the three of them.
Yes.
He's the most like freaked out and worried about what other people think of him than the other two are. But I mean, that's about it. They're all like trying to be really good. They're all just really excited to be there. You know, they're very green and
wanting to prove themselves and fit in and impress their commanding officers. I would say Boimler wants to impress people because he wants to get promoted.
Tendi he has a very sort of what's the word I'm looking for? He has a very sort of like now kind of idea of success and moving forward, like a very current sort of
very 2020. You get the job, you do the job well, you get promoted, you climb the ladder.
Like or in a way like a very like 1950s sort of view of what success is. Like just you work really hard, you put your head down, you follow all the rules, and you'll get promoted, and everything will be great.
And this is the way the world works.
Yeah, this is the way the entire world works, and you don't need to know anything else. Yes.
So Boimler is very, he has a very particular view of why he's trying to make certain people happy. Tendi, one episode, she accidentally messes up somebody's ascension ceremony.
Oh, yes,
they're pissed at her. So she has a similar, we understand she's a people pleaser. And she even says at the end, she's just like, I need everyone to like me.
Yeah.
And that's more of comes from a place of maybe more insecurity. and social wants. And then Rutherford.
I mean, we have
is
to
a
also
people
remember
pleaser.
that Tendi is an Orion also. So like they've got like a history with the Federation of being thieves and being manipulative and being untrustworthy and shit like that. Like, I mean, remember original series, remember the Orion slave girl.
Oh
in
yeah,
the original
yeah.
series. So for all y'all, like, they're basically, and I love this about choosing for her to be Orion. They're trying to take back that very sexist trope that was that was used in TOS, and then again on Enterprise. I feel like too,
And the movies with, the remakes.
Oh yeah.
The dorm room,
the Abrams universe. Yeah, Jesus Christ. They're taking this species and taking back the idea of they're all just like sexy thieves, basically,
which I'm sure
untrustworthy sexy thieves, and turning it all the way around and making her like a very nerdy, very sweet people pleaser. And I understand, if you take into account the history of her species, that she would feel like she has to take on this entire idea of, or all of this like potential bias that the Federation might have toward her species, especially considering like how the Federation acts towards Romulans and shit like that, So like, and then take that on her shoulders to like try to make sure that people don't see her that way. So I like appreciate that part of it as a minority. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Later maybe they do, but like so far they haven't really like, dug their heels in on that. I feel like they could dig their heels in really hard on that, and it would be awesome.
Are we getting too deep too? Let's be honest.
I mean, maybe, but like, isn't that what this podcast is for?
Well,
yeah, probably getting too deep, but like, I would wish for that. That's
it's she in this particular storyline with the Ascension. It almost seems like a well, I was gonna say like a Lisa Simpson vibe, but actually, I would say Lisa Simpson would probably be like Boimler.
Yeah,
that's more the Lisa Simpson vibe.
Yeah,
but yeah, Tendi, I think, if I had to be honest, I think that's with her storyline with that was screwing up the Ascension and trying to make up for it with this person who doesn't want her help. It's almost like she takes on a responsibility and a guilt, which I do feel like is something that like a lot of modern women do, even when we don't mean to. We're trained to apologize, and we do it when we shouldn't.
Yes.
So there is like part of the two. And then just to finish my thought, Rutherford is kind of a people pleaser, but he's also just so easygoing. Like you said in the one episode where he's kind of looking to find another department to work in, he's kind of just worried about, ruffling feathers and disappointing people, but he's almost kind of like the easygoing guy who, like you said, just wants to play with the tech.
I love him. I mean, it makes sense to me that he's my favorite because he's just so nice. Like, he's just really nice. And
he's happy where he is. Like you said, his world is kind of small.
Yeah.
He's just sort of like, I just want to do this. I'm pretty happy where I am.
Yeah, yeah. And I also love how, like, he ends up, because of his cybernetic implant, being, like, excellent at fighting and, like, really, really good at the whole, like, training program for the security. But like decides
the smorgasbord.
Oh my god, that was so amazing. But still, even though he's very good at it, decides that that's not what he wants to do. And also like P.S. just a side note. Love that the security chief is Bajoran. I mean, I love that he's an enormous Bajoran that just screams things about the prophets while he's punching people in the face.
It's like a general or a football coach.
Yes. It's amazing. I remember when I realized he was Bajoran, I like squeaked because I was so excited. And it made me very
I'm going
happy.
to list before we forget some of the things that just in the first 3 or 4 episodes that get talked about as far as, or spoofed, that would be kind of classic scenarios. First episode, some things we've definitely talked about. Crew being taken over by some sort of pandemic virus.
Yep.
Which is funny considering we just reviewed Impulse and our Halloween thing.
And they're basically zombies. Like we basically have a zombie virus going on.
There is biting. I'm sorry to report that, Larissa.
I know there's biting and there's also, there's
biting a beast on an alien planet.
Yep.
Let's see, some sort of talent show or showcase in the bar, trial by combat, and then a poker game.
Yep.
Ascension again. A
tiny point of light.
A tiny point of light that is very threatening and quickly gets extinguished.
Yep.
But also discovery of an old ship with a mummified crew and terraforming.
Yep.
So they waste no time in the beginning really getting into moments that will kind of take you back to the things you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Again, not only Star Trek, but other sci-fi-esque entities.
Yeah. I mean, even in the opening credit sequence, there's that one shot of that alien suckling on the nacelle. On the Cerritos, which is like basically Galaxy's child.
And we just talked about and then we talked about the child. Those are both from the maternity episode where it's like, of course, generic sci-fi light comes in.
Yep, generic sci-fi light. That one doesn't. This one talks. This one speaks English. It's just, man. It is as a fan. The rapid fire references are really fun. There are a lot of them.
Yeah, you and I kind of talked about this, and this is one of the things that I just casually didn't read any official journalistic reviews.
Oh yeah, I didn't either.
But I was curious just to see the fan reaction from, and honestly, if you go to, I looked at a couple different sources, but I know like Rotten Tomatoes, this doesn't have. It's like somewhere in the 60s for the reviewers, and I want to say somewhere in the 40s for the audience.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I just wanted to get a taste of what people were saying. And actually, there was a lot of positive reviews. But one thing that did start coming up was that it's a little too rapid fire.
Yes.
Which I do think is a characteristic of some of the newer animated shows, especially like Rick and Morty. It's just like bop, 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 bop. And there were times I thought, I'm not catching all the humor and all the references because
it's so fucking fast.
It's so fast.
Yes.
So it might just be my old lady ears, but that is something that I definitely noticed a few times where I just wanted it, and I always notice it more so with Mariner's character. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, slow it down. I can't process all of this.
Yeah. I mean, Dan even said he feels like they sped up the audio. And I think he's correct. So it is like actually faster than they recorded it.
Yeah,
that's what we're hypothesizing. Yeah, to make it snappier, and I feel like that was a bad call. I feel like they should not have done that because obviously, even for people like us who are really big fans of Star Trek, like I had to be like, what did they just say? Did they just make a reference to this? Did they just make a reference to that? And not really and miss it. Like if somebody like you or me misses a reference like because they talk too fast, that's not good. Like they want people like us to hear all the references, like or or at least they should is what I'm saying. Mike McMahan, you should want to make sure we hear all the references because we are your audience. But yeah, it's fucking fast, man.
And then the other question I had for you was just, it seemed like there were a lot of people who took this as good, fun, lighthearted satire. The way that I referenced in our Tribble episode, I really liked the Trouble of Edward Tribble episode, and I fully knew it was like, well, let's do an Office episode, but with a Star Trek skin on it.
Yeah.
I was like, this looks fun. And then there were definitely some people who have voiced that this is more about making fun and mocking Star Trek and Star Trek fans. And so I thought that would be an interesting thing to bring up with you.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's anything about this that is making fun of us or the franchise, or again, is it a loving satire?
I feel like what it's meant to be is a loving satire. I feel like 100% absolutely that's what it's meant to be. I think that if you don't get satire, which some people don't, a lot of people actually can't get satire. Satire is a very delicate balance. So if you're watching this and you're not someone who spent a lot of their childhood watching Monty Python, you might be like, excuse me? You know? So
funny, because I was totally thinking of Monty Python when I was thinking about these concepts.
Yeah, like to me, like of course they're making fun of us, and of course they're making fun of the franchise, but also they're part of the franchise and they are us. So that's where I feel like the basis for this satire does sit pretty firmly, because it's people talking about themselves. So like it's very obvious that the writers of this show are very, very big fans of the franchise already. If they weren't, they wouldn't know any of these references.
Or I think it's safe to say that even if they aren't fans, they're just in tune with the material.
Yes. And at least that the creator of the show, who's got a lot of the control, is a big fan, and that he understands the material and that he understands the franchise pretty deeply, and that it was very important to him that there be like a strong balance of satire on the show. So I don't feel insulted by any of it. I'm laughing at it because I understand that it's satire.
Yeah, I personally didn't see anything or notice anything that made me feel like they were laughing at me at my expense. If anything, like I said, I was either rolling my eyes or going, oh my God, Larissa and I were just talking about this.
Yeah.
So when you did have like the glowing light coming on the ship, or, something else, it was more of a moment of, it's kind of cheering, because it's one of those things that, I've totally talked to my Star Trek friends or had this thought about this Star Trek thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
it was more of a like, here's an outlet where we can kind of highlight it and maybe laugh at a cliche or something together.
Yeah. And I mean, just like specific things like watching somebody actually clean the holodeck. like that's something that fans are like, how gross must it get in there, and like whose job is that? Like all of us have thought about that. I mean, I think that it's definitely very self-aware.
Oh yeah.
And the question is like, is it too self-aware? I feel like if they just slowed down the fucking dialogue, it would solve a lot of problems for me. But I don't think I think it like sort of like walks that line of maybe being too self-aware every once in a while,
Yeah, I can understand that. I think especially with the early episodes, again, yes. I'll be curious to see what happens as I get to episode 10, or even I'm guessing there's going to be another season. If they feel like there's a real need to kind of jam pack the Star Trekness and kind of be so like, here, we have this. See, look, we're being Star Trek because we're trying to get new viewers, but also we want to pay attention to you classic fans that have been around for years.
Yeah.
If they'll kind of feel like they can take their breath a little bit, like, whew, and, still do what they're doing tone wise. Just like breathe a little bit.
Absolutely. CBS All Access did sign up for 2 seasons, so they will be doing a season 2. And I was totally feeling the same way, that like I'm interested to see what they do with the show when they can get to a point where they don't feel like they have to rely on so many callbacks and references to previous Trek.
Or
when
like
it's going to be its own thing.
Yeah, and maybe when they don't feel like there's immense pressure to sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I can understand that, the pressure to really make those early episodes count because you're trying to sell the product. I will say the people who I did go online and say reviews, the Star Trek fans who gave it lower ratings stopped at episode 1, and I definitely recommend to the listener, if you're going to give it a chance, at least get through the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
But I watched the first episode. It was fine, but I told Keith it was nothing that I felt like I had to watch.
Yeah.
But once we got to episode 3, Keith and I looked at each other and he was like, "Are you up for another episode?" I was like, "Yes." So it started to grow on us.
Yes.
And it was really fun. Again, Keith's not like a huge Star Trek fan. He's a casual watcher. And then, I'm definitely more the fan. So from both viewpoints, we have gotten to a groove where we're starting to enjoy it. So I would definitely say give it at least a handful of episodes.
Yeah. Same. It is funny. I have giggled. I have laughed out loud at moments. I'm coming to really like a lot of these characters. So I'm really excited to see where they go. Again, if they can make their own thing and sort of get to a point where they feel like they have to stop accommodating, when they can start not being like Ensign Tendi
and make everyone love them
and try to make everyone love them.
Well, no, and that's a good point too, because I think they will hopefully find their pacing a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, we also have to remember as fans, season 1 of TNG is bad. Like, in general, there are more bad episodes in season 1 than there are good episodes. Like, when people are like, I didn't like the first episode of a new series, so I'm never going to watch it again, but I'm a fan of this whole franchise. It's like, dude, really? Do you not remember the first season of TNG? Like, it's...
And even going into season 2, it's a little iffy.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not trying to make the excuse that, like, shows these... There's plenty of shows that once you get out of first gear, it's stellar.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But, like, we have to have realistic expectations here. So...
Well, and I think it's less about expectations, and I think sometimes with people, especially like us or people who are older and we're our age watching TOS, we sometimes have a tendency to look at things with rose-colored glasses.
Yes,
and go, TNG was great. TOS was great. Deep Space Nine was great.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of this.
Yes.
I'm so guilty.
And we kind of forget that there were... there were rough starts. We sort of forget sometimes that, yes, as much as we like to praise TNG for its morality and the storytelling, we also have to remember there were episodes like Rascals.
Yeah.
There was Captain's Holiday. Like, there was a Ferengi in a Hawaiian shirt and Picard wearing tiny space silver bathing suit thing with a full hairy chest. So you have to remember sometimes that it was serving a lot more than just those high points that we always think of, like Iborg or Measure of a Man.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, whether it's the show definitely being like a different tone and silly, or, again, also it's like there's a lot of Star Trek out there now. There's a lot of Star Trek out there. I don't even read the books or the comics. I feel like you've read the books.
I've read a few of the books, yeah.
Yeah, like there's so much.
There's so much material.
You don't need to be a fan of everything.
Right. Maybe this isn't for you, and that's fine. There is plenty of Star Trek out there. Season 3 of Discovery. Maybe that's more your speed. But, like, I enjoy that this exists. I like that we have entered this new era of Star Trek with all of these new shows and new iterations, and I like to see the universe ever expanding and taking on new topics and doing its best to do the same thing that it always has done, which is to be a mirror for who we are. And I think that this does, if you're just talking about like the basic thing that Star Trek does, this show does that. You know, like it holds up a mirror. It does have in every episode some kind of at its core either like a moral issue or like some kind of personal issue that needs to be discussed and solved in some way. So as far as that stuff goes, it ticks the Star Trek boxes for me. Although it is not competency porn, so it doesn't check that box. This in particular is not competency porn. This is like that second episode, or which episode was it? The third episode.
Is it the buffer time?
Yes, the buffer time episode.
I think that's the fourth one. Yeah.
Oh God, like that was fucking great. Like the whole like idea of like what happens if like this well-oiled machine is not running like a well-oiled machine. Like what?
Yes,
what
if you try to
fuck?
micromanage a whole Star Trek
Crew.
I mean Starfleet. Starfleet crew on a ship. What would happen?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that from the first four episodes really stood out, because much like I was talking about with The Trouble of Edward and joking, everyone's been in this meeting.
Yeah. Yep.
In the conference room. Like everyone knows this coworker, everyone's been in this meeting. And so even though it is still Star Trek, there's a lot of wink wink to the audience about kind of our daily life in current times.
Like everyone's had a boss or a client that's been like, you can do that job in 20 minutes. Like we've both have clients that have been like, yeah, but you should be able to do that in like an hour, right? And you're like, that's literally like a 2-day long job.
Look, if we're getting the job done, then don't micromanage every second.
Yeah.
So in this episode, it comes out to the captain that there is this buffer time thing that people are using, and she wants to have the best ship, so she starts micromanaging to a hellish degree where the crew is just like running around in madness trying to get all their jobs done. They're sleep deprived, they're stressed out, and then they have invading aliens, and she's still telling them, all right, I don't want you to ignore your jobs, like you gotta get your jobs done while defending the ship.
Oh my God.
And so that was just not only that was to me like more of a spoof of real life.
Yes I mean the whole buffer time thing, I mean, I just haven't seen it like talked about in other media the way that it's talked about on Star Trek. Like it's like the way that Scotty talks about it is, it's like, oh yeah, we all fucking do that. And like here's Scotty like freely admitting that this is a thing he does. You know, like obviously. So like it's like it takes that concept to the next level and like really shows us like what it's like to have the worst management. and like it's so relatable. It's this is to me, y'all, this is a cautionary tale.
So I think there's moments like that's like for me a perfect scenario where it's sort of taking stuff that's very relatable to anyone in the audience, but putting it in the Star Trek world and seeing like how would it play out if it was on a ship on TNG. It was something
holding up a mirror to society.
Yeah, and some people may not be for that. I totally acknowledge in the Trouble of Edward, some people may not want to see that. They want to see full Star Trek. They don't want to see Star Trek try to be The Office. They don't want to see Star Trek try to be the zombie movie like we were talking about with Enterprise Impulse. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, like you were saying, Larissa, like if you see the trailer and you don't think you're going to like this flavor, you probably won't, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's totally okay. There's plenty more Star Trek. And I will say that the trailer really does, that's you're getting what the trailer is showing you.
Yeah. It's straightforward.
Yeah. They are developing another animated show for Nickelodeon.
Really?
Yeah, for kids.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was just announced that Kate Mulgrew is back on that show.
Is she being Janeway? Or
She's
just another
Janeway.
character? Oh my god!
They're bringing back Janeway for kids. I love it.
Well, and this might be more like when we talked about the trailer. I said I thought just from reading about it before the trailer came out, I wondered if they were going to do a younger sort of like the example I gave was Teen Titans Go, which I feel like actually a lot of parents and non-parents are familiar with. So maybe this entity on Nickelodeon will be more
like that.
Of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I am hoping so. That sounds like fun. All this new shit, man. All this new Star Trek shit.
I've said this before. When all this new material came out, I had my first baby, and now having my second baby. So it's like, all right, gonna have to wait to get around to Discovery. But in the meantime, Larissa will be our Discovery person.
I am happy to. I mean, there are lots of places to get information on Discovery, you guys. But if you want to get it from us, I am happy to be that person for you. So that, I mean, again, we really just talked about the first few episodes of Lower Decks, but I mean, I think this is a good indication of what the tone of the show is going to continue to be. So we might talk about the last few episodes later, at some point.
When I'm back from maternity leave.
When Lauren is back from maternity leave, which everyone should be able to take and everyone should be able to have.
Yay. Yeah, so guys, I have when you hear this, when this is out, I should be leaving the hospital or just have left the day before. We're trying to get this one in the can, so to speak, so that, just in case baby girl comes early, we're not in a bind. But yeah, I'll be out for probably a couple episodes.
Yeah.
And Larissa will have some fun guests talking about fun Star Trek things. So I definitely look forward to that and hope you guys do too.
But for now, let's just say good luck to Lauren. I'm so excited for you and
Thank
your new
you.
baby. Yay.
All right.
The USS. I just remembered the USS Doritos.
I can't or like I want to call it the Sarantino or something.
Yeah.
And thank God they actually show it in the episode.
Yeah.
When I see it, I think, okay, but just hearing it, I'm like, what was that?
What? Wait.
Santiago? What? Yeah.
Find us in the collective at intothewormhole.show, on Instagram at intothewormhole.podcast. Into the Wormhole is brought to you by We Own This Town.
Anson Mount is everyone's daddy crush right now. Everyone's just like, so hot for Pike. So hot for Pike. So hot for Pike. So hot for Pike. So hot for Pike.